Hi, I'm Amy with We Make Movies, and today I'm going to show you how to edit your microdoc. In our last video, we showed you how to shoot engaging interviews for your A-roll and capture supplemental cinematic shots for your B-roll. Now it's time to put this all together and edit your micro-documentary in Final Cut Pro. For this video, let's take 2 interviews you recorded earlier on the same subject and use that content as the basis of our micro-documentary. Let's keep things simple and have the length of this microdoc be no longer than 5 minutes. Your micro-documentary will consist of the following types of media to tell your story: interview footage or narration that will go with your primary storyline in Final Cut Pro, your A-roll; additional video, pictures, or footage that will reinforce your narrative, your B-roll. This footage will go above your main timeline, creating what is called a secondary storyline in Final Cut Pro. Media management is one of the most important things to do when editing your micro-documentary. This is because you may have a variety of different footage of your micro-documentary from a variety of sources, including interview and B-roll that was shot over many different days on your iPhone. In our How to Make a Micro-Documentary and Mini-Movie, we talked about how you can use the Filmic Pro app to label your shots you took with your iPhone with their CMS, Content Management System, and airdrop them to your Mac. Move all of your footage out of your Downloads folder into either a folder named after your project in your Movies folder or onto a folder on an external hard drive. Once you are done airdropping your footage to your Mac, let's create our Final Cut Pro library. Launch Final Cut Pro. Close out any open libraries. We will be creating a new library for this project. Go to File, New, Library. Let's name our library Micro-Documentary. Double-click the event's name and rename it Micro-Documentary Media. Import your footage into your library. Select Command-I or the down import arrow. Now, if you shot a small amount of footage, you can keep all of it in one event. If you shot a lot of different types of footage in multiple places, you may want to organize your media across multiple events. You can add events by going to File, New, Event, or by pressing Option N. Now let's set up your timeline. Select a new project. Give your project a name. Select Custom Settings. There's a possibility that you have different media types, resolutions, and formats. The best practice is to set up your timeline resolution based on the resolution and frame rate you shot your interviews and B-roll in. If you shot in 4K, this would likely be 3840 by 2160 at 30p. If you shot in 1080, select 1920 by 1080. Once you have the correct settings, select OK to make your timeline. Now it's time to assemble your story. Your first edit is going to consist of mainly bringing down the A-roll interview into your timeline. From there, you'll fine-tune the narrative. First, let's add some type of mission statement with images to the beginning of your timeline. This will give you a reminder of the personal connection and what you want to convey to your audience in your microdoc. Go to the Edit menu, select Connect Title and Basic Title, or press Ctrl-T. Double-click on the basic title to edit the text. Type in a mission statement or a tagline for your story. You can always change it or delete it later on in the editing process. Next, grab 2 images from your B-roll keyword collection to your timeline. Select 2 static images, select them, and hit the E key to bring them to your timeline. Currently, there's no movement in the images. We'll add a Ken Burns effect a little bit later. For now, let's bring the interview A-roll into the timeline. Go into the browser and select a clip that has A-roll you'd like to edit into the timeline. Next, use the skimmer to find an answer from the interviewee you'd like to edit into the timeline. Go to the beginning of the answer and set an in point by pressing I. Now, play to the point where you'd like to see the answer stop and press O to set an out point. Drag this section into the timeline to make your first edit. Now repeat this process with all of your clips you'd like to see in your timeline. What you're doing is stringing out your sound bites, which are short clips from the recorded interview, into what is called a radio edit, where the audio is telling the main story. Once you're done entering your sound bites on your timeline, when you play back the timeline, you'll notice they aren't really telling the story. They're basically each interview separately. Now, move the sound bites around so you start to create the narrative that you want the audience to experience. For example, you recorded 2 interviews about soccer and you asked each one the following questions. How long have they played soccer? What got them started in playing soccer? What's their favorite part of soccer? And maybe ended with some closing thoughts. In this next edit, you can rearrange the clips around to put each soundbite of the answer next to each other. You can rearrange these soundbites so that the answers are in different order from when they were asked. Once you've moved the soundbites into the order you'd like, play your project. Notice how your microdoc's narrative is starting to take shape. When you're satisfied with the order of the narrative, it's time to go to the next step. Play back your project. Take note of the audio that starts late, soundbites that have any long pauses, filler words like and ands, stammering, or anything else that disrupts the flow of the narrative. There are a couple of ways to take out these mistakes and tighten up the audio. Select a clip that you know has an awkward pause or filler word in it. You may have to zoom into the timeline, Command+, to zoom into where the filler word is. Find the beginning of the filler and press I to set an in point. Play the clip to find the end of the filler and press O to set an out point. Press Delete to remove the selection. Alternatively, you can press R for the Range tool. Select the range and press Delete. Hit the A key to return to the Select tool. You can also use the Blade tool by pressing B. Find the beginning of the filler and click your mouse. Then click your mouse at the end of the filler clip. Select A to return to the Selection tool. Select the portion of the clip that you bladed and press Delete to remove it from the timeline. Continue through your timeline until you have removed the major filler words. You may have to do a couple of listens and passes to hear and edit out every single one of them. You will find a lot of your time will be spent fine-tuning your narrative. If you make a mistake by removing a part you don't want, you can press Command-Z to undo. Also, if you made a mistake in cutting off part of a sound of a word, you can select the edge of the clip and drag it to the left or to the right until you have the sound you needed. This is called a ripple edit. You can also use a ripple edit to more finely tune an edit. For this video, find the major fillers, edit them out, and then let's move to the next step of the process. Play your timeline. Did you notice any sound bites that are bumping into each other, where the timing is too fast and you want to add some space between them? Move your playhead between the edit points and add a gap clip into your timeline by pressing Option W. Default gap clip duration is 3 seconds. You can extend or shorten the gap clip by dragging the edges. One last step before we play back the edit. Play a selection where you added a gap clip to space out some of the sound bites. Notice how the audio gets completely silent before going to the next soundbite? If the drop in sound is noticeable, you can cover this up by finding the room tone you recorded in your documentary. Go back to the browser, find the particular interview you needed the room tone from, select the room tone portion. Now, simply drag the clip underneath the gap clip. Once you've performed the audio connect, press Shift-0 to return to All for Connect Edits. Play back your edit. Once you're satisfied with the timing and pacing of your project, it will be time to start adding in your B-roll. This is the part where you turn your talking heads interview into a true documentary. You can add video, images, or a combination of both to draw your viewers into your narrative. It's where your story will start to come to life. Typically, you'll want more B-roll to be shown than your A-roll footage. The more engaging and relevant B-roll you have to choose from, the stronger your documentary will be. A few notes about the uses and utility of B-roll footage. Make sure the B-roll you use reinforces the narrative of your A-roll. In our soccer documentary, we are not going to add B-roll that has no context to what is being spoken about. Be smart and pace when you add the B-roll. Use your strongest B-roll to emphasize important story beats. Use B-roll to cover up the jump cuts or edits you made to the main timeline. Use B-roll as a transition from one subject to the next. This is where you put your placeholder generators in the timeline. Use your best B-roll shots for what you want your intro and conclusion of the documentary to convey. Consider a call to action or something you want them to think about, like a change, involvement, or donation to a particular issue or cause. Let's add some B-roll to our timeline. Go into the B-roll collection and find a video of Sam playing soccer. Select either the whole clip or range, then hit Q to connect it above the primary storyline. Play the clip and notice how the B-roll replaces the visual of the talking head. The B-roll reinforces the context and provides a much stronger visual to the viewers. Continue to connect the B-roll clips to your primary timeline. Be sure to cover up any jump cuts, gap clips, and placeholder generators that you have in your primary timeline. Play back your project and notice how much more powerful and engaging your story has become. Your multiple interview videos have changed from a talking head video to a documentary that has various cinematic elements to engage and capture your audience. There are a few more steps of polish to add to this mini documentary to take it from good to great. If you have stills that are static and don't move, add motion to them by adding a Ken Burns effect. Select the still image in your timeline. Select crop either under the viewer, the first icon with the pull-down menu on the left, or the crop in the video inspector to the right of the video, and select Ken Burns. You can change the start point framing, green, and end point framing, red, in the viewer, or flip them around. Preview your changes and select Done when you are satisfied with the movement. Add music anywhere in your timeline, at the beginning or ending of your doc, during transitional B-roll footage, or under the narrative to help convey a certain theme, mood, or emotion to the viewer. You can add transitions between B-roll clips to have one clip fade in while another fades out. Select the edge of the clip you want to add the transition to. Select Command-T for your default transition, or select a transition from the transition browser and double-click or drag it to the edge of the clip to add it to the media. We've gone over quite a lot in this video when it comes to creating and editing your micro-documentary. Remember that the purpose of your documentary is to inform and engage your audience. It's important to end your film with a strong call to action, a point for them to consider, and even talk about going forward based on what they've watched. You have now made your first micro-documentary. Enjoy what you have accomplished, upload it to social media, and share it with your friends. Keep practicing all the steps we have discussed into how to make, shoot, and edit your micro-documentary. Each time, add something different. Explore new ways to tell your story visually. Find a cause or belief you feel strongly about and help bring awareness to the issue by creating compelling and engaging content for people to watch. I'm Amy with We Make Movies, and this has been How to Make a Micro-Documentary. If you like this video, please subscribe to keep up to date with the latest smartphone studio tutorials.